To what extent does the consumption of wood in the Philippines have a local and global effect, and what reasonable solutions could be used to resolve them? As of 2021, the Philippines is one of the most severely deforested countries in the entire world. Having some of the best quality timber on earth, the Philippines is receiving unbearable demands internationally for its many wood species, especially in a beautiful region in the Philippines named the Cagara region, which is some of the most vibrant timber in the world, inhabited by dozens of unique plant and animal species. Some of the worldwide wanted wood species in this region are Agar wood, a dark resinous wood used in incense, perfume, and luxury wooden cravings. This rare tree sells up to 100,000 United States dollars per kilogram depending if the quality is high enough. The high quality bark is used for wooden sculptures because of its luxurious properties. Additionally, Nyota wood is one of the most commonly used woods for cheap outdoor furniture, everyday products, and industrial purposes in the world. It isn't necessarily pretty or durable, with an average lifespan of 2.8 years after use in production, but it goes for only an average of $30 per kilogram, which makes it the best choice for millions of companies that mass-produce cheap products. Additionally, wood and furniture takes up a whopping 6% of all exports from the Philippines, which further justifies just how much the world wants the Philippine Islands wood. However, as a consequence from this booming trade industry, the Philippines has been unable to keep up the supply for many years already. They've begun cutting down sacred and protected forests just to keep their wood trade going, as it's been made such a large part of their economic output. With over-deforestation comes rather severe local consequences that have negatively affected placeholders in the last 40 years. The first of the negatively affected placeholders are the many indigenous tribes living all around the Philippines that are being forced to evacuate from their residence. More indigenous have been seen begging on the streets in the last 20 years, and the government is doing minimal to help these indigenous tribes find a new home, despite the Philippine Islands having a long cultural history with indigenous tribes. Additionally, countless plant and animal species in the Philippines are also being forced to evacuate to other homes. Not only does deforestation in the Philippines destroy its own ecosystem, but to some extent it can further worsen the unemployment of the Philippines overall, which is already 8.3% of the Philippine population, which adds up to 8.64 million jobless people. According to the official Philippine Statistic Authority website, nearly 1/4 of Filipinos work in agriculture as of July 2021. As you would expect, the decline of wildlife and greenery threatens unemployment to the millions of people who still have jobs, which can be observed to be happening already. As you can see in this graph, the employment rate of agriculture stood at 26.3%, but over the span of only 1 year, that number has dropped to 22.1%. Many different factors could have influenced this decline, but deforestation is most definitely the most responsible one. In conclusion to this consequence, the decline of agriculture could leave a large chunk of the Philippine residents jobless. The only way to prevent these rather severe consequences to the Philippines is to think of solutions that could be implemented within a reasonable amount of time, because the small islands are losing over 47,000 hectares of forest every year. One solution that could work is to completely fence off specific nature reserves to the public. This is because not only do companies buy land and cut down valuable woods, but illegal deforestation is also popular in the Philippines because of all the money lying beneath it. These fenced forests would ensure that the land cannot be accessed by anyone and the wildlife/tribes can live their lives peacefully, unthreatened by humanity, and each fenced forest would have at least 100 square kilometers in space. This solution is also rather cheap. No more than a few tons of steel to create 3-meter high fences and to camera stations on/near them to catch potential intruders. If one is caught cutting trees within the reserve, they would be performing the act of illegal deforestation and should pay a fine or go to prison depending on the severity of their actions. In terms of punishment, the criminal must be faced with the following fines and punishments depending on how much wood they illegally cut down in fenced reserves. For just trespassing into the reserve but not changing the wildlife, they will be fined 4,990 pesos or $100. Cutting down 1 to 10 trees results in a 12,480 peso fine or $250, although it may be more or less depending on the trees. Cutting more than 10 trees down would result in 2 years in prison. After all, without saving the forest in the Philippines could increase the unemployment number by millions, endanger local flora and fauna that have thrived in the forest for centuries, and threaten local Philippine tribes who have evolved and originally inhabited the Philippines for thousands of years. And the only way to save these stakeholders is to implement a viable solution or law which forbids deforestation in forests.